Think positive.
Welcome or welcome back to the Gulam Bros podcast. GA for short. I'm your host, Prince. This is a space for inner work, self-improvement, self-discovery, mindset, accountability, integrity, reflection, and personal development. This podcast is built for growth, for honesty, and for becoming a better version of yourself, one day at a time. New episodes drop every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Today's episode is called Sensitive Areas. From the weakest areas in my life, I found I'm made strong. Well, would that mean the areas I'm strong in could be found to be weak? Nah, not necessarily. Let's talk. Everybody has sensitive areas, not just on your body, but throughout your life. There are moments, memories, people, conversations that leave a mark. Sometimes those marks heal, and sometimes they don't. You don't always notice they're there either, until something brushes against them. One comment, one song, one familiar place, a name, one smell. Then suddenly, you're back in the place you thought you left behind. Some people describe those moments by saying, I'm shattered, I'm broken, I'm hurt, and those feelings are real. Nobody gets to tell you your pain wasn't painful. If something wounded you, then it wounded you. But I've been thinking about something. What if those sensitive areas aren't just reminders of what happened? What if they're also reminders of what's still healing? See, all those emotions eventually lead somewhere. Pain doesn't just sit there. It begins building walls, creates distance. It teaches caution. Eventually, it becomes protection. Because after you've been hurt, the last thing you want is for it to happen again. So, you protect yourself. You stop telling people everything. You stop trusting so easily. You question people's intentions. You keep your guard up. And to be honest, who could blame you? Protection is one of the most natural responses we have. If life cuts you, your instinct is to cover the wound. If someone betrays you, your instinct is to guard your heart. That isn't weakness. That's survival. Sometimes we criticize ourselves for becoming cautious. But caution isn't always fear. Sometimes it's wisdom developing. The important part is knowing the difference between protecting your peace and imprisoning yourself inside your own walls. Because protection is meant to help healing, not replace it. Think about a physical injury. When it's fresh, you don't let anyone touch it. Even the smallest contact hurts. You're careful. You're aware. You're protective. Why? Because it's still healing. Now, imagine months go by, maybe even years. One day someone accidentally bumps into that exact same spot. This time, it doesn't hurt. You barely react. Not because the injury never happened, but because healing happened. Time passed. Recovery happened. Strength returned. The sensitive area wasn't erased. It was restored. I think our hearts work the same way. Sometimes we're trying so hard to hide the wound that we forget healing is taking place underneath it. Healing isn't loud. Most of the time, it's happening quietly, without applause, no announcements, without you even noticing. Think about it. The wound didn't disappear overnight. You didn't wake up one morning and suddenly everything was okay. Healing has a way of happening without asking for attention. Little by little, you stop avoiding certain conversations. You stop replaying certain moments. You stop carrying what was never meant to stay with you forever. That doesn't mean what happened wasn't real. It means what happened is no longer happening. There's a difference. Sometimes we keep treating healed wounds like they're still open. We keep protecting an area that's already recovering. Before we know it, we've mistaken healing for hurt. But healing doesn't say anything. Sometimes it quietly becomes part of who you are, until one day you realize you're stronger than you thought. Then something beautiful starts happening. You begin sharing, not because you're looking for sympathy, but because you've found peace. You tell your story. You encourage someone else. You recognize pain in people because you've carried pain yourself. You recognize fear because you've stood in that same place. You recognize uncertainty because you've asked those same questions. And without realizing it, your weakest area becomes one of your greatest strengths. Not because it disappeared, but because it developed compassion. The people who comfort others the best are the ones who know exactly what pain feels like. Sometimes the strongest advice comes from someone who once thought they'd never recover. The beauty of healing, it doesn't stop with you. It continues through you. Maybe that's why we go through certain things, not simply to survive them, but to understand them. Because one day, someone else will be standing exactly where you once stood, confused, broken, questioning everything. And you'll be able to say, I know what that feels like. Not because you read about it, not because someone told you, but because you lived it. Your sensitive areas weren't only shaping your recovery, they were shaping your compassion, teaching patience, building wisdom, developing understanding, preparing you to walk beside someone else instead of just pointing them in the right direction. Sometimes the greatest purpose behind our healing is helping someone else believe healing is possible. One day, you'll revisit an area that once felt impossible to touch, and without even thinking about it, you'll realize it doesn't feel the same anymore. I hope you found something worth taking with you today. Maybe a new perspective, maybe a moment to pause and reflect. Thank you for being here and sharing this space with me. Your presence matters. If this resonated with you, share it with someone you care about, because growth spreads through connection. I'll see you next time. Take care of yourself. Stay grounded. And as always, be safe.